is your latest African news. Africa-wide. African sacred mask sold for 4.2 million euros in France despite protests. A carved mask from Central Africa dating from the 19th century has been sold in France for $4.6 million despite Gabonese protesters in the auction house calling for the item's restitution. The rare wooden gill mask was used in ceremonies by the Fang ethnic people of Gabon. The distinctive shape of the gill mask is believed to have played a huge influence on the work of famous European artists including Picasso and Modigliani. Like many others in the African community, the Gabonese are demanding the return of precious artifacts stolen during colonial times. Accompanied by security guards, the demonstrators left the auction hall calmly but continued their protest against the sale of African works of art. The auction also included a Congolese chair which sold for $45,000. With added costs and fees, the total paid by the successful bidder for the Fang mask was 5.25 million euros, close to a record for such an item. In 2006, a similar Fang mask brought in 5.9 million euros at a Paris auction. Estimates suggest that 80 to 90% of Africa's cultural heritage is currently held outside the continent. Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast walls up forests to fend off encroaching city. Ivory Coast is building a barrier around a primary forest in the center of Abidjan. A cinder-block fence 10 kilometers long is to run along the edge of the Banco National Park to prevent it from being swallowed up by the neighboring districts. Along with the Tijuca Park in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro, the nature reserve is one of just 2 virgin forests worldwide to have survived at the heart of a metropolis. The nature reserve of 8,584 acres is home to around 30 flora species in danger of extinction in West Africa. In the last 6 years, a demographic explosion and a boom in haphazard construction have pecked away at the forest edges. The forest has had increased incidences of deforestation, pollution, and fires. Ivory Coast has lost up to 80% of its natural forest in just 50 years due to agriculture, bushfires, illegal forest exploitation, and artisanal mining, the International Union for Conservation of Nature says. Of the 3 million hectares of forest the country has left, 2 million have been designated as 14 separate nature reserves. Mali. West Africa bloc maintains sanctions against Mali. West Africa's regional bloc has said it would maintain sanctions on Mali over the military leaders of the Sahel country, delaying a return to civilian rule after a coup. At the end of a summit in Ghana, the Economic Community of West Africa states also issued warnings to the military government that recently seized power in Guinea and Burkina Faso. ECOWAS said military leaders in Guinea should provide an acceptable timeline for transition by the end of April, or it would slap punitive measures on the government and the National Transition Council (CNT). The blog added in a statement that if Burkina Faso's military did not free former President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore from house arrest soon, individual sanctions would also ensue. The talks in the Ghanaian capital Accra came 3 months after the bloc slapped tough sanctions on Mali. Africa-wide, ILO elects first African Gilbert Hungbo as its Director General. The governing body of the International Labour Organization has announced the new Director General of the organization. Gilbert F. Hungbo from Togo was elected as the 11th Director General and will take office in October this year. The organization was founded in 1919 and has the mandate to promote decent work for all. It has 187 member states. Hungbo is currently president of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD. African Union Commission Chairperson Moussa Faki has congratulated Hungbo for his new role. Nigeria and South Africa. Nigeria and South Africa hold dialogue to strengthen ties. Nigeria and South Africa will on 31st March hold an inaugural dialogue in order to strengthen relations between the two countries. The High Commissioner to South Africa, Mohammed Manta, has said the inaugural people-to-people dialogue would be a stepping stone towards sincere conversations for improved relations between both nations. The envoy, in a statement, stated that the South African-Nigeria Social Cohesion Dialogue, to be held in Pretoria, would be a take-off point for people to understand the historical dynamics of the two countries, to engage and enlighten each other. The forum, with the theme Include, Engage and Enlighten, would also help in dispelling perceptions that have affected the relationship between both countries, the envoy said. Beyond this inaugural dialogue, there are plans in the pipeline to engage and interpret bilateral relations through music, movie and drama, among other artistic expressions. Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso civil groups protest against French military cooperation. A coalition of Burkina Faso civil society organizations composed of more than 72 members held a rally to call for the termination of military cooperation with France. The coalition called on the new Burkina Faso authorities to end French military cooperation in favor of Russian support to curb terrorism. In recent months, Russia has been making inroads to several African countries through its private security firm Wagner, with an aim of stabilizing security in Central African Republic and Mali. The Faso Lagam Taba Zaka coalition, which brings together several civil society organizations, according to its leaders, was created in the aftermath of the January 24th coup against President Roch Marc Christian Kabore. South Sudan. War of words as troops leave South Sudan VP's home. The president of South Sudan has defended the deployment of dozens of heavily armed troops around the residence of the first Vice President Riek Machar. Salva Kiir described it as a normal practice designed to protect the former rebel leader. Mr. Machar condemned the move, saying it creates doubt that the fragile process can succeed. He has accused government forces of attacking his positions in Upper Nile and Unity states in the north of the country in recent weeks. The United Nations has urged the two sides to negotiate to try to stop South Sudan sliding back into full civil war. Soldiers had encircled Mr. Machar's house after he rejected President Kiir's directive on the formation of a national army. It's a peace deal the pair signed in 2018 following 5 years of civil war. But progress has been hampered by mistrust among political leaders, intercommunal fighting and insecurity, and tensions are high as the country prepares for a general election next year. East Africa. Regional prosecutors pledge to crack down on wildlife crimes. Prosecutors from 11 African countries have vowed to crack down on proceeds of crime and tackle money laundering cases alongside emerging transnational crimes. The network of prosecutors from Eastern and Southern African countries is now expected to strengthen regional cooperation to strip international wildlife traffickers of their ill-gotten wealth as well as disrupt networks. At the close of the East Association of Prosecutors EAAP Technical Committee meeting and the Regional Prosecutors High-Level Consultations in Nairobi. Gitaranga, EAAP Secretariat Coordinator, said the association will set up a Regional Prosecutors Exchange program to enhance capacity building on various thematic prosecutorial areas. The association has been conducting interagency training over the past 5 years to create momentum and to push success in the region. Tanzania. World's vertical marathon to be held on Mount Kilimanjaro. The world's highest vertical kilometer marathon and ultra marathon will be held on Mount Kilimanjaro on May 9, 2022. The events will be sanctioned by the International Skyrunning Federation, the governing body for the high-altitude mountain running, adding another summit to a long list of incredible records. Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania is the world's highest freestanding mountain, summiting at 5,895 meters on Uhuru Peak. A dormant volcano, it is the tallest in Africa and the Eastern Hemisphere. In a week-long contest of ascent and acclimatization, the participants will take on 1, 2 or all 3 races on the last day. On reaching 4,895 meters, the events kick off with the world's highest vertical kilometer, a long-busting 3.5 kilometer with 1,000-meter vertical climb to the summit of Uhuru Peak, which is 5,895 meters. From there, those attempting the world's highest marathon will continue on down. The total distance including the vertical kilometer amounts to 42.2 kilometers with 1,836 meters of vertical climb. From the summit, the downhill is a grueling 3,700 meters. Sudan. Hague Court holds first Darfur trial. The International Criminal Court's trial of Ali Kushayb or Kushayb will open on April 5, 2022 and offers the first opportunity to see a leader face prosecution for massive crimes committed in Darfur nearly 20 years ago. The trial is a long-awaited chance for victims and communities terrorized by the notorious Janjaweed militia and government forces in Darfur to see a leader held to account. For years, those implicated in serious crimes and other abuses in Darfur have largely suffered no consequences and in some instances have even been rewarded, according to Human Rights Watch. Sudanese authorities are yet to surrender the remaining fugitives involved in the human rights abuses in Darfur, including former President Omar al-Bashir. Senegal. Senegal infuriated by what it calls racist remarks from French candidate Zemmour. Senegal has said that it will take appropriate actions against French presidential candidate Eric Zemmour for the degrading and irresponsible comments he made against the Senegalese community living in France. This is after the far-right contender branded some of its members delinquents and crack cocaine dealers. Senegal firmly condemns the remarks made by Zemmour from Reconquête Party and one of the 12 candidates to the French presidential election due on 10th and 24th April. Ambassador Sayers said that his country will take appropriate actions against the politician and may even consider a lawsuit. While visiting potential voters in northeastern Paris on 25th March, Zemmour said that most of the non-French delinquents are Senegalese and that they will be sent back to Senegal when he will be elected president. Africa-wide. Africa's 5 teams going to the Qatar World Cup confirmed. The 5 African nations heading to Qatar for the 2022 FIFA World Cup were confirmed on Tuesday night. Cameroon, Morocco, Tunisia, Ghana and Senegal will represent CAF in the first ever November-December World Cup. All 5 qualifiers booked their places at Qatar 2022 by winning 2-legged playoffs. Those playoffs turned out to be largely close affairs as the away goals rule sent Cameroon and Ghana through, while Senegal beat Egypt in a penalty shootout. Elsewhere, Tunisia held on for a 0-0 draw against Mali to see them prevail 1-0 on aggregate, while Morocco were the only big winners on Tuesday as they thrashed DR Congo 4-1, 5-2 on aggregate. South Africa. South Africa regulator bans sexist wine advert. South Africa's advertising regulator has ruled against a wine advert that has been criticized as offensive and perpetuating rape culture. It is said the advert depicting a young woman with her mouth wide open and wine being poured into her mouth was in breach of advertising regulations. The advert was created by alcohol delivery service Wine Time and appears on the side of a van. The Advertising Regulatory Board ARB said complainants felt the branding was highly offensive as it objectifies and sexualizes women for no responsible reason or cause. In its decision, the ARB said the advert constituted a negative gender portrayal that was unjustified. It did not depict responsible alcohol consumption by volume or pace and created an impression that it enhanced sexual performance, it said. The woman's pose of supplication while she drinks alcohol is problematic in a country rife with alcohol abuse and alcohol-related gender-based violence, the board added. Uganda. Uganda government launches campaign to reduce use of charcoal and firewood. The government of Uganda has embarked on a campaign to reduce the use of charcoal and firewood, starting with large consumers that include educational institutions, hospitals, and prisons. The Electricity Regulatory Authority (ERA) has signed a memorandum of understanding with the country's prison services with the aim of transiting from the use of biomass to clean energy in a project called Charcoal to Power. More than 200 prisons across the country will benefit from the pilot project, as they are an institution that uses around 30,000 tons of firewood a year for cooking, which translates to $277 million. ERA is targeting over 500 institutions and 50,000 households before they roll out the campaign in the rest of the country. Kenya. Kenya holds first all-female motor rally. Kenya held its first ever all-women auto rally competition called the Lioness Rally, the race that attracted 8 teams all made up of female drivers. Organizers hope the inaugural race will attract more women to motorsports. Maxine Wahome and her partner Safina Khan came in first place with a time of 17 hours, 16 minutes and 1 second in their Subaru Impreza. Coming in second place by just 13 minutes and 1 second was renowned driver Tash Tundo, who was navigated by Chantel Young. Caroline Gatimu and Tinashe Gatimu, the mother-daughter duo, came in third. The Equator Rally, which will take place on April 3, 2022 under the Africa Rally Championship banner, will continue the motorsport action.
Africa-wide, 1 Congolese mercenary and 1 Central African Republic mercenary fighting for Russia have allegedly been killed in the Russian-Ukrainian war. Reports of the alleged deaths of 2 African mercenaries that were fighting for Russia in the Russian-Ukraine conflict have surfaced. This comes only a few days after fighters in the Central African Republic pledged allegiance to the Kremlin and said they were preparing to enter the war in Ukraine. A group of 10 heavily armed soldiers appeared in a video saying they would soon join their Russian brothers on the front line to bring peace and order. Kenya. Facebook faces suit over work conditions in its Nairobi office. A former Facebook employee who was reportedly fired after questioning working conditions has threatened to sue the parent company Meta for wrongfully termination of his contract. Mr. Daniel Moitang, a former content moderator for the social media platform, claimed he was fired for trying to organize a trade union with his 100 co-workers in the Nairobi office to protest what they felt were exploitative working conditions. His lawyers say the letter put the 2 firms on notice of a forthcoming legal suit for violating the rights of Kenyan and international staff, noting it was their constitutional right to form a union. Content moderators like Daniel are the most important and least discussed aspects of Facebook global operations. Their job is to sift through the social media posts of Facebook's nearly 3 billion monthly users and remove posts that violates its rules such as graphic violence, hate, and misinformation, it stated. Ethiopia. Ethiopia begins a drive to return 100,000 migrants from Saudi Arabia. Ethiopia has started a new drive to repatriate tens of thousands of migrants working in Saudi Arabia. The first batch of 498 women and children returnees were received on by senior government officials at Addis Ababa's main airport. It follows reports of undocumented migrants being subjected to inhumane treatment in the Middle East country, including detention in squalid centers. The Ethiopian authorities hope to repatriate 100,000 nationals back home over the next 11 months. The government has come under criticism, particularly in social media, for not doing enough on the plight of Ethiopian migrants in Saudi Arabia. Rwanda. Rwanda takes in 120 migrants from Libya. Nearly 120 asylum seekers have been evacuated from Libya to Rwanda in the first such flight of the year. The group of men, women, and children, the youngest less than 1 year old, were from Eritrea, Sudan, South Sudan, and Somalia. Most had been living in urban areas of Libya's capital Tripoli, and others had been arbitrarily held in detention, some for several months. The group will join another 269 refugees and asylum seekers in Gashora, where the UN Refugee Agency UNHCR provides assistance including shelter, food, and medical care. Detainees in various Libyan migrant centers have previously described routine torture, rape, malnutrition, and the spread of diseases like tuberculosis because of conditions they are forced to endure there. Rwanda has taken in more than 900 asylum seekers since mid-2019 when it signed an agreement with UNHCR and the African Union. Ghana Parliament approves controversial e-levy bill. Ghana's parliament has approved a new contested tax on electronic transactions. Known as the e-levy, the bill will introduce a 1.5% taxation on electronic money transfers. President Nana Akufo-Addo's government claims it will help raise over $900 million and address the problems of unemployment and high public debt. But for some Ghanaians, the tax represents an additional burden on top of the high cost of living, with fuel prices rising following the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Members of the opposition refused to take part in the vote and walked out of the assembly, describing the tax as unfair. Zambian football medic dies after Nigeria-Ghana game. One of Zambia's most celebrated medical doctors has died after the Nigeria-Ghana World Cup qualifying game. This occurred when Nigerian fans started attacking players and staff on the field and caused a stampede. It is not clear how Dr. Joseph Kabungo died, but there are some reports that he suffered a heart attack. He was one of the medical personnel for the match in Abuja as Nigeria drew with their arch-rivals 1-1, leading to Ghana qualifying on their away goals rule. Ugly scenes later ensued when angry Super Eagles fans peppered players with water bottles thrown from stands as they left the pitch. With police reportedly using tear gas to disperse the crowd, the Nigerian authorities have yet to comment publicly on the incident. The medic was a permanent fixture at major footballing events, including the most recent FIFA Arab Cup in Qatar and the Africa Cup of Nations in Cameroon. His unexpected death has left Zambia's footballing fraternity in mourning.
Kenya. Ukraine embassy asks Kenyans for financial help. The Ukraine embassy in Kenya is calling for financial support from Kenyans and other well-wishers as the conflict with Russia continues. In a statement released on March 31st, the embassy reached out to those willing to support the country to make their donations, which will help the country recover from the impact of the war. The embassy has opened 2 accounts for donations, which will be channeled towards helping those affected by the ongoing skirmishes. Justifying the move to open the accounts, the Ukraine embassy noted that it was informed by several requests made by Kenyans to help the nation. East Africa. Ethiopia, Kenya army chiefs agree to take lead to strengthen Eastern Africa standby force, peace and security. The Chief of Staff of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces (ENDF), Field Marshal Berhanu Jula, and his counterpart Chief of the Kenyan Defense Forces, General Robert Kariuki Kibochi, held talks in Nairobi on 30th March, during which the two agreed to take lead to strengthen the East Africa Standby Force (EASF) and work together for mutual peace and security, the Ethiopian embassy in Nairobi said. During the discussion, the two chiefs of staff also agreed to work together on various bilateral and regional peace and security issues. Both Ethiopia and Kenya are part of ESAF, a regional organization mandated to enhance peace and security in the Eastern African region, as is one of the 5 regional multidimensional forces of the African Standby Force (ASF), consisting of military, police, and civilian components. Africa-wide. African refugees fleeing Ukraine held in EU immigration detention facilities. More than 4 million people have now fled Ukraine for neighboring countries amidst the Russian invasion. However, African students who have fled have been detained by EU border authorities in what has been condemned discriminatory and unacceptable. Although all neighboring EU countries have pledged to accept refugees from Ukraine, as people flee across the borders, a complicated story emerges of who is perceived and received as good, bad, and ideal refugee in modern Europe. Media reports have revealed that Ukraine residents of African origin who have crossed the border to escape the war have been placed in closed facilities, with some having been there for a number of weeks. The European Union's Temporary Protection Directive is seen as creating a double standard by permitting Ukrainian citizens to enter neighboring countries but barring third-party nationals from access. The International Organization for Migration (IOM) has said they were aware of 3 other facilities in Poland where people who are not Ukrainian and who have fled the war are being detained. This is despite an EU protection directive dated March 4, 2022, which states that third country nationals studying or working in Ukraine should be admitted to the EU temporarily on humanitarian grounds. It states that it also applies to nationals of third countries other than Ukraine residing legally in Ukraine who are unable to return in safe and durable conditions to their country or region of origin. Mali. Russia sends extra military equipment to Mali. Mali's military government has received 2 combat helicopters and 2 sophisticated radar systems from Russia to help in its fight against Islamist militants. The military government, which seized power in 2020, has developed closer ties with Russia after a series of disagreements with France. The former colonial power began withdrawing its troops from the West African nation last month after almost 10 years fighting the jihadist threat. About 75% of French troops are reported to have departed. DRC. MPs fire DR Congo economy minister over Ukraine hikes. The Democratic Republic of Congo's economy minister is set to leave office after losing a no-confidence vote in parliament over the soaring cost of living. Before the vote, Jean-Marie Kalumba had blamed hikes in the prices of oil, coal, and cereals on the crisis in Ukraine. He explained that DR Congo imported 55% of its wheat from Russia and 15% from Ukraine. Imports had also been affected by the fact that sea freight costs had risen by 700% in less than a year, he said. But MPs were having none of it, with the majority voting for his removal less than a year since he took office. Mr. Kalumba is the first member of President Felix Tshisekedi's cabinet to be voted out by Parliament. Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe to repossess unused land. Zimbabwe has begun repossessing idle land from black farmers who had benefited from land reforms 2 decades ago, according to Agriculture Minister Anxious Masuka. The minister had said that farmland lying unused and owners of multiple farms will lose land, and the land will go to aspiring farmers from a wait list from earlier rounds of land reforms. Speaking at the opening of annual tobacco auctions, the minister said some repossessions had already occurred while others were in the process. Former President Robert Mugabe launched land reforms in 2000, removing white colonialists and giving it back to Africans. The scheme was supposed to redress legacies of British colonialism. Still today, Zimbabwe has 250,000 farmers who are on the waiting list for land. Great news! Tunacheki, Kunda Kids and Nala have partnered together to bring you Maua and the Gardens of Plenty, our first African children's book, for free. Nala is a money transfer app that uses the latest technology and works with local communities to make payments as hassle-free as possible. The easy-to-use app allows anyone to quickly send money from the UK to Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ghana, with many other African countries and currencies coming soon at the lowest rates available. To get a free copy of Maua and the Gardens of Plenty for yourself, family, or friends, download the Nala app, use the code KUNDAKIDS, and make a transfer of as little as £1. For those in the USA, you can download the app and RSVP for your free book coming next month. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, follow, share and like our video. It's the best way of supporting us. And remember, Africa is watching.